Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Planning Committee meeting. Do we have apologies for absence, please?
Yep, Chair, apologies from Councillor Johnston.
Okay.
And Joe Wallace and Kenneth Baird.
Okay, thank you very much.
And Joe Wallace.
Thanks, Diane.
Okay, the order of business.
Is as printed in the agenda, Chair.
Okay, declarations of interest. Any member have a declaration of interest they want to declare at this moment in time? If not, as we go through the agenda, when we come to the item, if you recall that you may have to declare an interest, if you could please have it recorded. Thanks very much. That then takes us on to the minutes of the meeting of the 1st of September. Are they okay with everybody? I haven't heard anything otherwise, so I'm assuming that everybody's happy with the minute, or maybe not happy, but it's a true recording of what went on. Okay, that then brings us on to item 5.1, which is a pre-application consultation. Peter. Oh, sorry. Hold that thought. Sorry, Councillor McCollum. Sorry.
Convener, can I just chip in? I'm getting a little bit of feedback from when you speak, Convener. I just wonder, can everyone else mute themselves? Because that sometimes happens when everybody's not muted. Thank you.
Right, sorry, I should have actually said that at the beginning of the meeting. Yes, if you keep muted, if you're not speaking, and yeah, your little yellow hands would no, maybe actually I'd be better going into the chat box, and that would help me to if anybody wants to come in, just type in that they would indicate to come in, or indeed put your yellow hand up. Okay, thanks for that, Councillor McCall. I should have said that as a prerequisite to at the start of the meeting. Anyway, Peter Arnsdorf, are you there?
Thank you, Chair. The report's before you. There's no additions or alterations to the report, so it's as presented, Chair. Okay,
fine. Has anybody got any questions on this that they want to have an input at the moment? Bearing in mind this is part of the pre-planning application, and it's just one leg of it going forward into the public consultation. Oh, Councillor Muirhead, thanks.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, are we talking about 5.1, the proposed residential development at Redheugh?
Yes.
Right. Can I ask a few questions on that then?
Of course, that's...
some questions and maybe just some comments that might be helpful. There's mention within the paper of the online consultation that was conducted rather than, as was normally required, like a physical public meeting by the developers. I'm just wondering if we know how many people participated in that online event in the first instance. I'd also, I'm wondering if there's any sort of initial views for planning as to how this site will be accessed, whether it's from the Povert Road end or from the Butlerfield end. And a wee bit of information maybe on the existing bridge that is there at the moment. I think, is it site H50 that is just past the railway line? This is like almost an extension of that. Would this only be able to go ahead if H50 satisfied that kind of requirements for a link into the site? Also about the primary school, we've got a primary school going down into that general area, and if my memory serves me correctly, we were talking about the potentially building a primary school and then extending it later if further development took place. And I'm just wondering if you know, when this application comes forward, would it be likely that we would press the school that met the requirements if we pass this of the whole area? I'll stop at that just now, Chair, and maybe see if I can get a response from
a lot. Peter?
instance.
Thank you, Chair. If I just work through those in order. The first one in terms of the online consultation, Chair, I don't know the numbers that logged into that online consultation. Quite happy to go away and ask the applicant and come back to the committee or directly to Councillor Muirhead, so I can try and find that out. In terms of the actual site itself, in terms of the access, its relationship to the neighbouring site, which is H50 and the primary school. Yeah, you're right, Chair, in terms of this is an extension to an already allocated site which has got planning permission in principle for a residential development and a primary school. That site itself will be accessed off the new roundabout on the A7, which has been built. And then the first phase of that, up to 135 units, can be built out off that roundabout. After that, they then need to bridge the railway. So they're actually in discussions with Scottish Rail about putting a bridge over the railway so that then accesses the rest of the site. When that's in place, the access to this site before you today will be through that route. So that's how you would get into what's before you. So it's almost dependent on the already allocated and approved site coming forward, that infrastructure coming in and then into this site. And it's a similar scenario with the school, Chair. It depends on the build rate. There is maybe a presumption that the first site gets built out prior to this site coming forward. But if there is some overlap, then the phasing of the school will depend on that. So I can't give you a precise answer to that at the moment because it depends on the build rates, which will become more evident once you get into more detailed applications. Hopefully that helps.
Okay, fine, Councillor Muirhead.
So in that scenario, as far as the developer contributions are concerned, then the applicant for this particular site would need to make a contribution towards the infrastructure, i.e. the rail, the crossing of the railway line, that the second part of the first site would require, if you like. I take it that is the case. And on the question of developer contributions, I see that it mentions in there all the contributions that are looked for. And I think, you know, as far as feedback's concerned, I think one of the things that's mentioned in the developer contribution things that that would contribute towards would be like network links. And I think it's important that we consider during all that and pass on to the developer that the requirement to have links both through that site in terms of joining it up with other communities like the new housing at Butlerfield and things like that, taking cycling traffic and pedestrian traffic away from the A7 so that it can actually get through that site, and also network links across the site, because the other side or the far end of that, so the east of that site, is really important natural facilities, if you like. There's woodland and walks and all sorts of things that are very much valued by people in this area, and it's important that there are network links going through in that direction as well to get into the to the countryside beyond. I'd also make the point about developer contributions for what's termed in here as town centre improvements, and I think when we're looking at that, if this goes ahead, I think it's important that we talk about developing facilities within Gorebridge and make decent facilities so that when we are building our high school, that the facilities, the community facilities that are in that high school are at least every bit as good as the facilities in Bonnyrigg and in New Battle. And I think we can only do that by making sure that the contributions are coming in for all the sites round about into developing the facilities in the Gorebridge area. I just wanted to make these points, Chair, because I think that this is helpful, I think, and just in terms of setting down what I think our community is going to be looking for should these things go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that, Councillor Muirhead. We're quite entitled to have that kind of input at this moment in time, and Peter can go back to the developers and get them to consider that prior to a planning application coming in front of us to determine. So that's why we have this opportunity now, without prejudice to any outcome, to actually you know, make these judgment calls and ask specific questions and make certain points. Councillor Alexander.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I don't know if this is the right place to ask, but I think it's important that it is asked. With our green agenda, should we be asking developers, especially of large estates, to put solar panels on their houses, on new houses, just as part of the rules of getting planning permission? Because I think going forward that might make quite a huge difference to our footprint, our carbon footprint.
Okay, Peter, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In terms of the energy efficiency, both through the planning application process and a building warrant process, we do try and pick up and address climate change and energy efficiency, zero carbon type technologies. There are, sometimes it's solar panels, sometimes it's other forms of technology. And the latest one is that we're exploring on big sites district heating systems, which are trying to address that issue. So it's a fair point to raise, Chair. We do try and address that during the plan application process and the building warrant process. It's worth just identifying that at the sort of building warrant process, there are targets, carbon targets set in the regulations that house builders have to meet. So there's a sort of a catch twice there, planning and building warrant.
Okay. Answer your question, Councillor Alexander?
Not totally, no. I think that if they, even although you are making the houses energy efficient and using district heating, there's still going forward the likes of electric cars and tumble dryers, washing machines, dishwashers, etc. that we're using. So I think the addition of solar panels would contribute greatly towards reducing our carbon footprint. And I think that it's not a huge thing to ask developers to therefore put solar panels on all new houses.
Okay, well, that's something that I'm sure that Peter can take away and talk it through with the developers, Councillor Alexander. Councillor Smale.
Yes, I wonder if we could ask the developers to create a model to ascertain what the impact of this very large development, 400 houses, will be on the Gorebridge station. The problem with that is if that car park's full up, it's very difficult to find anywhere else in Gorebridge to park your car. And the proclivity of people who are in an estate that is close to railways, I think something like 1 in 5 households will use the train, and then that's going to be 80 extra cars. We certainly haven't got the room for that.
Thanks very much, Councillor Smale. Just before I bring Peter back in, we did actually identify a new station going there at one time, so I don't know what happened to that. So Peter, you could maybe pick up on that aspect in answering Councillor Smale's question.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, you're spot on there, Chair. If we remind ourselves of the first phase of Redhugh, which was for the 700 houses, there is land reserved there for a railway station. I think it's labelled as a rail halt, but it's effectively the same thing at Redhugh. The idea is, although it's close to Gorebridge, you could potentially have alternate trains. One stop at Gorebridge, the next one stops at Redhugh, so they wouldn't all automatically stop at both stations. But that is safeguarded for extra rail provision. So that is in the bank, as it were. In terms of Network Rail, they weren't going to deliver that piece of infrastructure until you've got the customer base, i.e. Redhugh, coming forward. So there is that position. But the actual point itself is a fair one, Chair, about looking at how you get residents from this development and others onto public transport, including the rail system. So yeah, we definitely look at a sort of active travel plan and a transport strategy when that development comes forward, and rail is part of that mix because of its proximity to the rail line.
Right, thanks for that. Very good question, Councillor Smale. Councillor Kern.
Thanks, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Alexander's point about energy efficient houses, I'll be brief. The it's not just about technology like solar panels, fuel cells, district heating. It's also about design efficiency. And one of the items that's coming to the fore now is the passive housing. Really energy efficient houses, all about the design and open spaces, and also tackles fuel poverty. So just worth noting that as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. We did put that was in the housing report that went through the council 2 council meetings ago. So thanks for that. Okay, have we got anybody else wanting to participate? Bearing in mind this is just a pre-planning application, but get your questions in while you can. Good. Right. Okay. Fine. Right, Peter, I hope you've got note of all these things, and I wish you every success with the developers. That then brings us on to the next application, 5.2, which is again, a pre-planning application, and it's for the possibility of a David Lloyd Health and Racquet Club down at Shawfair Park. Peter.
Again, Chair, it's just as per the report presented. There's no additions or amendments to the report.
Okay, open up to members if they have any questions at this point in time. Gone. Oh, Councillor Hackett.
Thank you, Chair. It was just looking at, I think the development would be classed as class 11, and the development presumes class 4 and 5. I'm just wondering, in and around the Shawfair area, is there any other or any land allocated for class 11, or are there any other similar properties nearby?
Peter.
Thank you.
Right, thanks, Councillor Hackett. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. That's a good question. The site itself is allocated for class 4 and 5, but there isn't any nearby allocation for class 11. So on that basis, when you're then looking at the planning application, you're obviously looking to secure jobs and investment on a business park. But the Shawfair Business Park, there is an opportunity to have what they call ancillary uses and other uses if there's a justification for it. So there may be scope, Chair, to look positively on this. I mean, the general principle of the actual development is contrary to the development plan, but there's a potential argument that this is a good form council may want to capture, so it would look to maybe add some weight to those material considerations. But there's no immediate site allocated for class 11. You may look to secure that sort of use in the town centre, i.e. Shawfair town centre, so you would sometimes see that as part of a town centre mix. But I don't know whether you've come across these proposals before, but at David Lloyd Centre, they're quite substantial in terms of size, in terms of the buildings, so it's maybe not ideal for the town centre, so that this may be an appropriate site for it.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. Councillor McCall. You did have your hand up. No, okay, right, fine. Is there anybody else got anything they want to say? Okay, right, fine, thank you very much indeed. That then takes us on to 5.3, which is an application up at Thorney Bank for an all-day. And the report is in front of you. Do you want to add anything to it, Peter?
Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Can I expect there's going to be a few years doing this, but can I just declare that I have been contacted by a number of people by email on this issue, and I've responded to them all, but I haven't given any indication on my views or my intent on this issue, so I'm going to take part today.
Okay, right, I'll go through them as I see them. Councillor Parry. Thanks, Councillor Muirhead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was just about to say the same, and also been contacted by the applicant. Everybody that contacted me, I have noted their email and their views and not given an indication. I'll be taking part in the meeting today.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Parry. Councillor Margot Russell.
Similarly, I think we've all received emails, and I was always very careful and not to give any opinion on, just acknowledge the emails and thank them very much for their interest, and I will be taking part in the meeting.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go through it all one at a time on the basis that it's recorded and I don't want anybody falling out of the loop. So thanks for that. Councillor Monroe.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to echo the comments of the two other councillors, I've lost count of how many letters of a lot of lost count of how many emails I've received from nearby residents.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor McCall.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just like everyone else, loads and loads of emails from residents and from the applicants, gave no opinion and explained the planning process. I will take part in the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Carden.
Thanks, Chair. Similarly, just been contacted by quite a number of residents and the applicant and landowner as well. Haven't formed a view or passed a view, just merely acknowledged the receipt of their email.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Hackett.
Thank you, Chair. I've received a number of emails. I've responded to some of them, but I haven't expressed a view, just noting the contents of their emails. Thank you.
Okay, indeed. Councillor Winchester.
Exactly the same for me. I've answered all of them and just said I note the contents and that I'll take them into consideration, but no opinion given.
Okay, Councillor Cassidy.
Ditto.
Councillor Janet Leigh Douglas.
Yeah, I've acknowledged all my emails but not given any opinion on the application. Thank you.
Councillor Alexander. Councillor Alexander, you're muted.
Sorry, yes, I've had lots of emails from the applicant and from residents roundabout and haven't given any details or opinions as to how I feel.
Okay, thank you.
For the comments of everyone else, obviously a large number of emails, including from the applicant and local residents. Again, haven't given any opinion and don't feel that my impartiality is in any way affected.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And I'll just do the last round. Likewise, I have received an inordinate amount of emails and likewise have not had formed an opinion and will deal with it at the meeting today. Okay, thanks very much indeed. For those that have still got their hands up, appreciate if you could put them down. Okay, right. Peter, did you want to say anything at all?
Chair, all I was going to say was that there's an update to the report, which is basically that we've had 7 additional representations received. 6 of those were supporting the application, 1 was objecting. But all those 7 representors have already made comment on the application and have not raised any new issues. So they've already been reflected within the report, but just to update you on the numbers.
Okay, thanks for that. So the report is as stands when it was printed, yes?
Yes,
Okay,
Chair.
right, thanks very much. Right, I'll open it up for discussion. Now, am I assuming that the hands are up are actually people that want to come in? Yes? Okay, Councillor Muirhead, your hand's up.
Sorry, Chair, it shouldn't have been.
Right, okay. Councillor Parry, I'll give you first call.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I've just got a couple of questions. There were some anomalies that were, or alleged anomalies in the paper between what the applicants claim as the amount of retail space that takes up the residential part of the development. So I think in the paper it said it was 50-50, and I think the applicant said that it was somewhere nearer 70. So it'd just be good to get some clarification on that. And the second part was just around, so the paper refers to some of the leakage issues that we think it might come about should Aldi move into those. So particularly leakage from kind of retail in and around Dalkeith, perhaps Bonnyrigg as well. But looking back, that study that was done back in 2012, I just wanted to ask Peter how relevant he thought that that was in terms of consideration for this planning, because it does seem like it was incredibly outdated. So reading through that report, it was meant to take us up to 2021. So it'd be good to know if there's going to be something else, a kind of replacement for that study. But when back in 20, it really didn't take into account the accelerated growth in Midlothian. We're constantly hearing at the moment that Midlothian is the fastest growing local authority, yet the study that's based there really doesn't take into account that population growth. So it'd just be good to know what relevance there is, and if Peter could add any kind of additional information around leakage that might not have been caught up in that 2012 report. But I'll pause there.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Peter?
Chair, just to pick up on the very first point to start with, which was about the how much of the site was taken up by the retail unit. It's probably the easiest way to show you is just by looking at page 41 of your papers, which is the location plan, which shows the site, but also shows the rest of the site, the hatched housing site. And it's about 50-50. It may be slightly out, but it's roughly 50% is taken up by the proposal, and that would leave you about half the site for housing. So that is the rough split. In terms of the actual retail study, I think there is an element where this is now a little bit dated. It's not just the growth we've had. We've also, of course, had Morrison's that have come into the town, and that after the 2012 study. And you've also had, just down the road from this site, of course, the Sainsbury's local, which again is after the study. So you've had additional retail come into the town, and there's been the growth. It's referenced in the report because it's the last piece of work we have about retail numbers and about leakage. The applicants made reference to it, and so as one of the objectors, so hence we've then addressed it. But I think it is fair to say it is a bit dated. It is a bit dated. I think it's reasonable to conclude, though, that there will be some trade diversion. You know, if you move a new supermarket into a town, those people that end up shopping in that supermarket currently shop somewhere else. So there's a common sense approach to be taken that there's a scale of trade being moved around, and how much that will then impact the town you could get into debate about. If you look at the report, there's a range from the applicants 11%. I think a competitor, Lidl, thinks it's about 16+%, and I think the council officers, in working through some of the information, thinks it's about 14% of the convenience shopping market would move to Aldi. But that's the best information we've got. We've got no more information than that. And the final point is there's no current plan to produce a more up-to-date retail study. That may be something to happen in the future, but there's nothing in motion at the moment.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, Councillor Parry. Councillor Curran.
Oh, couldn't unmute myself. Thanks, Chair. You hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks. I've never received so many responses to a planning application, just to say that from the outset. I think it's important to remember that we're not just simply building houses when we approve residential planning applications. We're also building communities, and communities require services, retail being one of them, and also public transport being another. And I note that the applicant is proposing 2 new bus shelters, which does give potential to improve the local transport links. Choice is important for consumers, and as well as job creation, and that's more important now than it's ever been, certainly in my lifetime. 35 jobs, whether full-time or part-time, would be welcomed. I struggle to really accept the argument that the creation of these jobs would be offset elsewhere. I really don't see this retail development being significantly detrimental to Dalkeith Town Centre. I fully support our town centres. I've raised that in previous planning committees with other applications. And if I thought this would have a detrimental impact on Dalkeith, I wouldn't be supporting it. And just to touch on Councillor Parry's point, the retail study is dated and doesn't really account for a rapid population growth, certainly in the last few years. Whether the applicant can build 30 houses, 30 housing units on the remainder of the site remains to be seen. But there is a balance to be struck between building communities and providing services. And while there may be a very small detriment to affordable housing on this site, if the application was to be approved, it is worth noting that we are excelling in that department in Midlothian, at least anyway. Just on the West Cowden hub, I do think we need to re-evaluate that hub site. Clearly, there's not been any interest from retail up until now, and given the way things are in the world at present, I don't see that changing, certainly in the short to medium term anyway. Just touching on the report in respect to the hub at paragraph, I think it's 8.12, if I can just quote that. It says, this would likely end the prospect of the original West Cowden hub being developed as originally planned. It could be argued that the original plan was called off in 2016 when the Sainsbury's local store was granted consent, and that would be a reasonable argument in my view. Chair, just to let members know where I sit, and I'm not going to formally move anything at this stage, but I'm minded to approve the application subject to conditions, and one of those conditions would be the creation of a formal pedestrian link between West Cowden and the proposed development. However, I'm not formally moving anything and not committing to anything until I hear other contributions. Thanks, Chair.
Right, thanks very much, Councillor Curran. Councillor Winchester.
Thank you, Chair. Now, not many people know, but I actually live just up the road. And totally agree with the people who have come in saying there is nothing for a lot of people how to shop, get their groceries. Yes, Morrison's is in town, but that's the nearest other than the Sainsbury's local. And Sainsbury's local isn't the cheapest shop going. People need a choice down this end. I'm lucky I've got a car, I just jump in my car. But it's actually not far from Woodburn, where a lot of people would be able to walk without getting on public transport, or if they haven't got access to cars. Again, I'm not moving anything, but would like to hear the rest of the contributions from us.
Okay, thanks very much indeed, Councillor Winchester. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I've written quite a few things down here that I wanted to say, but it's already been covered. The only thing I would say is the fact that because the planners had asked Aldi if they would go on the Thorny Bank, the West Cowden hub site, that wasn't an issue for them then, because the argument could be it's an out-of-town shopping. That's the only thing I'd like to raise. As I say, my colleagues here have covered most of the stuff, especially about the job situation. Given the way things are, we'll be needing more jobs, not moving away from the town centre. So thank you for the time, and I'll listen to the rest of the contributions. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much, Councillor Russell. Councillor Mulligan.
Thanks, Russell. Yeah, probably just a couple of questions. I'm quite surprised at the recommendations, Peter, because quite clearly the applicant seems to have shown, as you point out yourself in the report, and I think it's 8.7, that even though they're taking up a chunk of the site, they can still get the housing numbers that are allocated in the local plan. So I'm not actually sure where the debate for that. The fact is that we plan a lot of these community hubs or locality hubs that we talk about, and you'll see even down at Hopefield now where you've got the big area set aside and there's nobody wanting to take them up. And here we have a national retailer willing to come in and take this up. I think it's an absolute no-brainer, and I'll certainly be moving to support it. I think that you're going to get the house in there. I think the area that I did have most concern in, and that is the viability of the town centre areas, but the sheer growth in Midlothian, the sheer numbers of houses that are going up, I'm sorry, it swings the seesaw to the side that the amount of houses going up will outdo the amount of people that are drawn away from the town centre areas. So I'm going to be supporting this application, and I'm quite surprised at the recommendations here.
All right, thanks very much, Councillor Mulligan. Councillor McCall.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't think there's anything I would disagree with that's been said already. And I think Councillor Curran makes a really important point that we're not just building houses, we're building communities. And if anybody has had a response similar to this about a planning application, I'd really like to know, because I'm really surprised the amount of emails that we have all received, all in support and for different reasons. And I think giving people a choice, and again, Councillor Winchester is absolutely correct, the fact that it's a Sainsbury's, which it is, I think, the most expensive supermarket that we have within our area. If people have got an Aldi, it gives them choice. And I have been contacted by quite a few residents in my ward saying, can we not have an Aldi? Obviously, we don't have anywhere to put one, but you'll get people from all over the place. People will go from Pennycook to this Aldi as well. The jobs are important too, and I note that Aldi pay more than some other supermarkets as well. They're pretty much at the top of the range for a starting salary. So, you know, these are better paying jobs in retail, and I think to me there's just no a decision to make here. It just seems I cannot see anything, no reason why we vote against this. So I'd be quite happy to move a motion granting permission. Again, we can put whatever we feel is relevant, like Councillor Curran, who knows the area better than I, about, you know, pedestrianisation or whatever. Thank you.
Right, thanks, Councillor McCall. It's like a Christmas tree. There, all these little yellow hands are flashing up. Just another thing to say, Councillor McCall, to follow up on, you know, wouldn't we just love to have something? There's what, 1,500 to 2,000 houses going to go in at the back end of Pennycook. We've got all the houses in Roslin and Bilston, and I don't see a shop in sight. So please take that into consideration. Also, please take climate change into consideration, where people maybe won't need to drive from this area into Musselburgh or indeed Gilmerton. And if we are serious about climate change, then that's another factor now that maybe our local plan should be looking at, and that is how we locate certain businesses and make it near the community rather than them having to get there. So I've had my and by the way, we're not allowed to use public transport at the moment, only as a last resort. So, you know, it would be great if they could go up the road there with their legs, never mind anything else. Councillor Hackett, Councillor Cassidy, and then Councillor Hardy. And I'm kind of getting to the stage now where I think we should pull this one in. So, Councillor Hackett first.
I also had my hand up as well.
I know, but you've been in already. These others haven't, Kelly, and I'm trying to be fair. It's called democracy. Councillor Hackett.
He's had his chance.
Councillor Hackett, you're on mute. Right, Councillor Cassidy, I'll take you. And
Thank
you
you,
can wait
Chair.
you can wait your turn, Councillor Hackett.
Chair, I'm a local lad to this area, and I grew up in Woodburn, and I was out there on Saturday doing a litter pick round that area, and I can tell you the fly tipping that goes on in that site is a disgrace. The site is polluted with all sorts of rubbish, and it's actually running with rats at the moment. So anything that we put in there is going to be a vast improvement. But I also think that, as everyone's alluded to here, it is going to be a vast improvement getting an Aldi in there, because this is something that any area in Midlothian, let alone Scotland, would be proud to have in their backyard. So I'll be seconding Councillor McCall's motion to put this forward.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Cassidy. Now, I'll bring you in now, Councillor Hackett.
Thanks, Russell. Chair, I'm just wondering, in terms of our town centre first approach, I'm struggling to think of a town centre this side of the county that would be able to accommodate a site like this. without any sort of major redevelopment of the town centre area. And I'd be interested to hear Peter's view on that. And I'm wondering, what could we do to make sure, if this development did go ahead, could either complement or improve the hub neighbourhood approach at Wester Cowden? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Hardy.
Thank you, Chair. I just kind of wanted to echo some of the comments previously, and then, of course, one of the things that I think we've all realised in the COVID situation is that, you know, supermarkets, they are an essential service. They are as important to our local communities as, you know, post offices and doctors' surgeries and libraries. So there's something that actually we need to make sure that residents have access to. And, you know, particularly we saw when people are having to queue outside, you know, more availability of shopping would have prevented a lot of the delays for many people, and it made it more easy for people to social distance. So I think we need to make sure that that essential infrastructure is something we are ensuring is there for all of our communities. And I kind of wanted to second the motion that Debbie had put forward, but obviously Councillor Cassidy's already done that. But I think it's quite clear the will of the committee seems to be moving in support of that motion. So I think we should just press on.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hardy. Yeah, I'm getting a funny feeling, unless anybody wants to put their hand up and say anything else, I'm getting a feeling that the committee are of an opinion that we overturn the recommendation in the paper and support this particular application. But we can go round. We can go round again if you want. Councillor Parry, I bypassed you the last time. You had your. Would you like to come in?
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. I'm not offended at all. I appreciate that I did speak before just on a few points of clarification, but I just wanted to sum up where I was at, and I completely agree with Councillor McCall and everybody who spoke in support of the application. So I grew up in Whitehall Grove, which is at the top of Woodburn. Lived there when I was a bairn. And you know, that was 30 years ago, and there's still the exact same number of shops in that area as there was when I was wee. So, you know, I think this is a really good opportunity, not just for Wester Cowden and those areas, but actually for Woodburn residents as well. I think this is a great thing, really good opportunity for job. I wholly agree with Councillor Curran's point about the conditions that he suggested, and I would be in favour of that as well. But happy to leave that there, Councillor Emery. Thank you.
Okay, right. Thanks a lot. I'm struggling. The board's going up and down with people's hands up and down. Councillor Milligan.
Sorry, Russell, I should have took my hand back down.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Chair. As a Woody resident myself and raised my family here, I'm obviously very proud of my area, and it would be certainly good because they're obviously a good convenience store, and because we have various issues with regarding food poverty in our area. One thing that, and I picked up what Stephen was saying, sorry, Councillor Curran was saying earlier, and it would be good to have some links between if this Aldi is approved, which it looks like it will be, if it's approved, if you could make sure there's improved cycle and pedestrian access from the surrounding Western Cowden housing scheme. I used to be a scheme, you see, not a street. That's from a wedding. But I think that would make it a bit easier for people that live up in that area. But we're correct in what we're saying about the Wester Cowden hub will not happen as it was envisaged. I wouldn't suspect, but we need to get something else in its place, and whoever the landowners of that site may want to come forward with other things. Thank you, Chair, for your indulgence.
No problem, Councillor Russell. Councillor Curran, it goes right back round to you, who started it all.
I'll be brief, Chair. Just to ask Peter, just on the point I raised about a condition of a formal pedestrian link cycle route from Wester Cowden to the proposed development. What would the benefits of that be, Peter?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, at the moment, the occupants and the residents in the Wester Cowden development to get to this site would effectively follow whatever the quickest road route would be. But there are opportunities to speed that up for pedestrians if you connect to particularly Woodhall View or a Rindale Drive, so you can, from a pedestrian point of view, effectively go from behind the store into Wester Cowden. It's in part depends on the rest of the site, the housing component coming forward, because although Audi are quite happy to put a pedestrian link to the edge of their site, we would then need the gap bit to be filled in, which you would naturally look to do when that housing site comes forward. But when that'll be, I don't know. So the question is whether you want to try and secure a temporary one in the meantime so that you can get up and running. At the moment, you can walk it, but you're effectively going over partly the sort of grass, and the topography is not ideal, which if you're in a wheelchair pushing a pram, etc., it's not great. So you really want to formalise that route. But I think, Chair, that's something that I would go away and speak to Aldi about and see if we can just secure that either on a temporary basis till the housing site comes forward, or make it more permanent, and then the housing site effectively fits in around that. So I think that's quite important. But Chair, based on the direction of travel, I would just take that away. So I would look to ask the committee to put a condition on which looks to secure an improved pedestrian cycle route to the Wester Cowden development, and then I would speak to the developers on that.
Okay, Councillor Curran.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Now, you indicated, Councillor Curran, don't run away. You indicated it right at the very outset, and we've had about another 10 people wanting to move the application. I'm allowing you, given you started and did indicate first, I'm allowing you to move it if you so desire.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate your fairness, but I'm not precious. It's it's been moved and seconded. I'm happy with that. It was just Peter's clarified that he will get the condition in, whether it's temporary or permanent, regarding the pedestrian access.
Convener, can I just butt in there, please? I was just moving it, just to get things moving. I am more than happy to hand over to my Dalkeith colleagues, given that it's in their ward. More than happy for Councillors Cassidy and Curran for there to be their names on it. It was just in the interest of moving things forward. I'm not precious about it.
Chair, there appears to be universal consensus. I mean, I'm happy just to take over.
Chair, can I just ask before we close the meeting?
Oh, sorry.
That this condition that Councillor Curran's asked for doesn't turn into a fiasco, like some of the conditions we've seen on other planning applications, like the Sutra development, where we're still trying to get that one passed because of a bus stop. I don't want this dragging on for 2 or 3 years like Sutra has. I'd like this to be brought to a quick conclusion and this supermarket to be up and running as soon as possible.
No, thanks for that, Councillor Cassidy. I think Peter made it quite clear he will go back and request from Aldi's, and it just means for example, it takes some other 10 minutes just to put a bit of hardcore down or something like that. I mean, as Peter says, it's actually that site isn't allocated to Aldi, so we could get. I'm sure we could get something out, but I can give you an assurance from the chair here that if this goes through today, we are not going to be stopping it for something like that. It's a request, it's a condition that's put down there, and it can be followed up by the planning officers, and we won't get embroiled in a debate, who does, who doesn't, etc. So I'll give you that assurance from the chair. One of the reasons why I actually called the application in the first place, and the first time I've ever called an application in, because I thought it was such an important application that this council has an opportunity to determine. So we all agreed, subject to that additional condition, and we go ahead with that. Okay? Right, well, thank you very much for your forbearance. And as you can see, the next meeting is November time, and no doubt we'll still be zooming around. Oh, sorry, Microsoft Teams now. Sorry, it's everybody else that uses Zoom apart from us. Peter, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. Just to be clear, just be clear from my point of view, Chair, do you want me to draft the conditions and clear them with yourself as the Chair? I'm particularly interested to make sure we also secure the bus stops and bus shelters that Audi have said they will provide. So just make sure we tie that in, but I'm happy to pass those conditions by you, Chair. And
if that's agreed by the committee, then Peter, we can pick up on that one. Is that okay with the committee?
Yeah.
Right, thanks. Peter, anything else?
Chair, the only other thing I was just going to say was hopefully try and give Councillor Cassidy a bit of reassurance. I would look to try and secure the footpath whilst the construction of the building is taking place, i.e. try and get it in before the building's open so we wouldn't delay the build of the store. So there isn't that built-in delay at the start.
Thank you, Peter.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks very much indeed. And again,